I knew something was wrong the day I realized I was whispering while alone, not because anyone could hear me. There was no one there but because my body had learned that being quiet was safer than being real. The apartment was empty, yet my voice still moved carefully, as if the walls might report me for taking up too much space. I stood barefoot in the hallway, keys in my hand, frozen by a feeling I couldn't explain. I had everything I needed to leave: shoes, coat, a destination. But my chest felt tight, like I needed permission for something as simple as opening the door. That was the moment I understood. Whatever had happened to me wasn't over. It was still living inside my muscles, my breath, my hesitation. I used to be decisive. I remember that version of myself the way you remember a dream, foggy but emotional. I once chose restaurants without apologizing. I once disagreed without rehearsing my tone. I once trusted the sharp, instinctive no that rose in my throat when something felt wrong. Now, I negotiated with myself over everything. Was I being unfair? Was I misreading the situation? Was I about to hurt someone just by existing too loudly? People think control looks dramatic. Raised voices, slamming doors, demands, but the most dangerous kind is quiet. It sounds reasonable, concerned, gentle. It sounds like someone telling you they just want what's best for you. I met him when I was exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. The kind of tired that settles behind your eyes and makes you grateful for anyone who seems steady. He was calm, attentive. He listened in a way that made me feel chosen. He remembered details, asked follow-up questions, noticed changes in my mood before I named them myself. It's nice not having to explain everything, I told him once. He smiled and said, "That's because I really see you." At the time, that felt like safety. Slowly, my world began to rearrange itself around his voice. Not because he demanded it, but because he framed his opinions as concern. You seem drained after seeing them. I just hate how they misunderstand you. I worry they don't appreciate how sensitive you are. It didn't sound like isolation. It sounded like protection. I stopped calling certain friends because I didn't want to deal with the tension afterward. I shared less with my family because it felt easier than defending my feelings. Without realizing it, I had handed someone else the authority to interpret my reality. The first boundary he crossed wasn't obvious. It was emotional, not physical. A private thought I hadn't invited commentary on. When I reacted, confused and uncomfortable, he tilted his head and said gently, "I think you're reacting from past trauma." That sentence followed me everywhere. Anytime I felt uneasy, it was my trauma. Anytime I pulled back, it was my fear. Anytime I questioned him, it was my insecurity. Eventually, I stopped questioning at all. There's a special kind of erosion that happens when someone rewrites your emotions while insisting they're helping you heal. I learned to doubt my memory, my reactions, my instincts. I learned to smile through discomfort because confrontation felt more dangerous than silence. The night it broke wasn't loud. We were sitting across from each other, the room dim, his voice calm. I told him I felt smaller than I used to, that I missed myself, that I was scared I was disappearing. He reached for my hand, squeezed it, and said, "You're imagining things. You've never been more yourself than you were with me." Something in me went cold, not angry, not panicked, just clear. I realized then that the version of me he loved was the version that didn't resist, didn't question, didn't take up room. He didn't want me whole, he wanted me manageable. Leaving wasn't brave. It was brutal. I cried in the car, in the shower, on the floor of my bedroom at 3 in the morning, bargaining with memories that no longer matched reality. I missed the person I thought he was. I missed the future I had silently planned. I missed the illusion of safety more than the truth of control. Healing didn't arrive as relief. It arrived as work. I had to relearn how to trust myself. Not in big, dramatic ways, but in small, uncomfortable ones. Saying I don't agree without explaining for 5 minutes. Letting someone be disappointed in me without rushing to fix it. Sitting with the anxiety of choosing myself and not immediately regretting it. Some days, I felt strong. Other days, I felt like I had made everything worse. But slowly, things shifted. My body stopped bracing every time my phone buzzed. I noticed when I was holding my breath and let it go. I caught myself before apologizing for feelings that didn't need permission. One evening, I laughed unexpectedly. The sound startled me. It felt full, unfiltered. I hadn't realized how long it had been since. Laughter reached my chest instead of stopping halfway out of my throat. The silence in my life changed after that dot. It no longer felt like punishment, or absence, or something to fear. It felt intentional, spacious. Mine. I still have scars. Certain tones of voice still make my stomach tighten. Certain dynamics still trigger the old urge to disappear. But now, I notice when it happens. I don't automatically obey it. That awareness, that pause is everything. I move differently now, slower, more grounded. I leave conversations that make me feel small. I stay in my body when discomfort rises instead of abandoning myself to keep the peace. I don't confuse intensity with intimacy anymore. I don't mistake attention for love. I don't believe silence means safety. Sometimes, the past still reaches for me. A memory, a phrase, a look that echoes something old. But I breathe. I remind myself where I am. I stay present. I survived, yes. But more than that, I reclaimed myself. And this time, I'm not whispering. Healing didn't turn me into someone fearless. It made me aware. I still flinch sometimes. Still pause before speaking. Still feel that old instinct to smooth things over before conflict even exists. But now, there's a gap between the feeling and the action, and inside that gap, I get to choose. That choice is everything. I stopped explaining myself to people who weren't listening. Stopped offering pieces of my story to those who only wanted control disguised as concern. I learned that clarity doesn't need volume. It doesn't argue. It stands. Some relationships faded when I stopped shrinking. Others surprised me by deepening. I began to recognize safety not by intensity, but by how my body felt steady, open, unbraced. One day, I caught myself in the mirror and noticed something unfamiliar. My shoulders were relaxed. My face wasn't guarded. I wasn't performing myself. I was simply present. The past still visits sometimes. A phrase, a tone, a memory that tightens my chest before my mind can intervene. But now I stay. I breathe through it. I don't disappear. Silence no longer feels like a warning. It feels like space I'm allowed to take up. And for the first time, that space feels like home.